This week on the $1 Million Plan, we talked to a gentleman by the name of Mark. He's in his late 50s. To say he's gone through some changes in his personal and financial life would be quite the understatement. And it's one of those situations where today we need answers. Today we need to take the information we got. We need to take the situation we find ourselves in, and we need to come to some solutions and quick. And he joins us now. Hello, Mark.
Hi, how are you, Pete?
Is this the first time on a podcast called $1 Million Plan?
It is, yes.
Oh, yeah, excellent. I'd say me too, but that would not be accurate. Mark, you have gone through some pretty major life events here in the last several months. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so I would say in the last 18 months, I've gone through about every major life change you can. Went through a divorce, went through, we just sold our house. We were in pretty good shape. I had been married almost 20 years, and we were in pretty good shape for, we thought retirement, but with the divorce. And then I got laid off for the first time in my life. I've been in sales my whole life. So it all happened kind of all at once at an age that's not perfect.
Sure. So you're 57 years old, and so we're gonna jump all over the place today. But from what I just heard you say, you have some concern over being unemployed at age 57. Tell me about that concern. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate. I've tried to find a job in my industry. I've never had a problem. And then after I got laid off and took some time off to kind of deal with this divorce and the move, selling the house and everything, I'm finding that I'm getting down to the final couple for jobs that start out with a couple hundred applicants.
Right.
But I'm not getting the job, and the jobs are going to, frankly, younger people.
Sure. That
a couple times didn't really have any industry experience. So yeah, that concerns me. But at the same time, I can't use that as an excuse. So my main goal is to start working again.
Now, and again, this is one of those episodes where, unfortunately, at various times, I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions. How much do you think your confidence, based on what you've been through in the last 18 months, do you think that's affecting you in your at these finals, or do you think really it's more of a matter of age and what they could pay the younger persons versus what they'd have to pay you?
Well, it's hard to say. I think it's probably a little bit of both. I don't see any reason why I can't just continue to do the jobs that I was doing before, because I don't feel any older than 57. I just, right. I feel like I'm still in my 30s. So I think it's part of it, but I think having the last 18 months off is probably not ideal when you're searching for a job. Sure.
What kind of money were you making prior to the layoff? Like, what was your annual income?
It was $150,000 to $200,000.
And what was the base of that? Do you remember?
It depended on the job, but it was typically $100,000 to $125,000 base, and the rest was commission. It was all sales.
And then how many sort of companies had you worked for in the last 5 to 10 years?
Well, the last 5 to 10, I was with a large company for 15 years, and I actually took an early retirement package about 4 or 5 years ago. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but at the time it sounded right. And then in the last, I tried a couple different things, and then I got more of a job that I'm used to 3 years ago. Did that for 2 years at a large software company, and then that's when the layoff happened because they went through some things, and I got caught up in that.
Prior to the divorce, what did you estimate your net worth to be?
$1.8 million.
And how much of that was investable assets or retirement versus real estate?
Most of it was investments. Most of it was retirement investments. We had some other accounts that we've had to kind of work. We've had to actually spend some of that money, but most of it was retirement. Our real estate, we had a nice house, but we were caught up in a situation where we bought it in 2008, and right after that is when all the custom movers, or the custom builders, moved out of our neighborhood, and more of a Pulte type company had to come in and take the rest of the neighborhood. So we actually ended up losing money when we just sold our house.
And then, Mark, help me understand the 1.8. How much do you find yourself with right now?
About $600,000.
And then how is that mainly retirement investments? Is some of it non-qualified money? Like, what's the composition of that 600?
At this point, it's almost all retirement. The money I'm going to have to get me through the next 3 months if I can't find a job will come from about $40,000 that I have from the house sale.
Okay, so 560 retirement, 40 cash from the house sale would be more accurate.
That's about accurate. Yeah.
Okay. And you're 57. When do you turn 58 approximately?
In April.
Okay. All right. And then I'm curious, 1.8 million net worth down to 600. I always accept and expect some shrinkage, some 50% here and there. What am I missing? Where's the other money?
Well, that's a good question. So I think part of it is, we used a mediator.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go through attorneys. We didn't have to go to court. Mediator, I think she did a good job, and I think it was pretty fair. But because of some situations in our marriage, for whatever reason, she got about 60%, and I only got about 40.
Okay.
Even though the state I live in is supposed to be a 50-50 state, but it just worked out that way. So that was a big chunk because I had to write her a pretty big check out of one of my retirement accounts.
Financially speaking, are you free and clear? I mean, you have no further financial obligations?
Pretty much. I mean, I have a couple car loans, but no, we've never had any debt. We've done a good job about not having debt.
Tell me if you can, and this sounds like I'm salting wounds, but I assure you I'm not. Tell me about your lifestyle prior to the divorce. It sounds like it was I say healthy, but that could go either way, what that means. Was it opulent? What was it?
I would say with the money we made, we could have, the area we live in, there are a lot of people that don't make, they want to make it seem like they make a lot more money than they do.
Sure.
So they go into a lot of debt. We were never like that, but I had this nagging, for the last, I would say 15 or 20 years, I had this nagging suspicion. We've never had to budget. We've always had enough money. I've had this nagging feeling that we should be maybe putting just even a little more in the bank every month.
Right.
But we were maxing out my 401k. It was growing. We've got, our retirement investments, of course, because the stock market's been doing so well, been growing like crazy. So we've done okay, but no, I wouldn't say we were opulent, but we also were not budgeting.
Yeah.
So 50-50.
Now, I'm not trying to make this too tidy, but I'm curious, do you feel like because now your economics are different, do you feel like you have a fresh start? I know that's maybe I'm coloring it through rose-tinted glasses here, but do you feel like a fresh start thing, or does it not feel that good?
Well, I try to look at things through the most positive eyes that I can,
Right.
And it has been rough, but yes, I do feel like I'm getting a fresh start, and there is some freedom to that, even though, I could have stayed married and still been in great shape financially, but then I wouldn't have been happy. So this feels like a good fresh start. Hopefully I can find some options that work for me. And even though I don't have the money I did before, it's not like I'm broke.
What do you think you're spending a month right now? I think I looked at some notes. Nicole, let's take a look at rent obligations. You're paying, was it $1,600 in rent right now?
Correct. Well, yes, that starts this week, actually, yes.
Okay, so talk about fresh start. It's that fresh here on the $1 Million Plan.
Today. We moved out of my house today.
So $1,600. Well, I'm glad we're dealing with this all at once.
Yeah.
What do you think your other monthly expenses are going to be on top of that $1,600?
Well, I figured all that out, and before I eat and do any entertainment, it's about $4,000 total. So
Okay.
it'll probably be about $5,000.
Okay, $5,000. So if we look at, have you? I know you've done this. I'm just curious. Like, all right, I just need to make X amount of dollars gross a year to live the lifestyle I'm happy with now. You've done that, and what's the number you come up with?
Well, I think I can make $100,000 and be okay. I think that would be easily pay my bills and leave some left over to invest. I'd like to get back to a job where I was making, the kind of money I did before, because then I'd have a lot left over. And given what I've been through, that's all going in the bank.
Have you tried the old, and I'm not going to try to deviate into career advice. This is a financial show, but I'm curious as if you've done the I'll take less base for more skin in the, more on the back end. Have you looked at that approach?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've looked at a lot of different things besides what I've some of the interviews that I've had in my old industry, and I'm not sure exactly where it's going to take me. But I've been doing a lot of brainstorming, and sure. that would be an option.
Yeah, how many years do you? And this is a hard question to answer because I, I don't want to be so confident in saying that you're dealing with age discrimination, although there are probably elements of it there. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
I mean, but how
Well,
many?
yeah.
How many years do you see left in your work career? By the way, this tape is not being sent to your recruiters. I'm just curious, how much do you think you have left? 10, 15 years?
I think I could work 10 or 15 years. I would rather work 10 because, frankly, we were thinking we were in pretty good shape for retirement. Although I wasn't ever going to just retire. I was probably going to do something. But now I have to, make a little more money, and probably work for a few more years. So, yeah, I'm thinking 10 years is kind of the magic number.
Because where my brain keeps going with this whole idea is, let's say all told you're at 550,000 in investable assets. We let that grow unmolested for 10 years, and that becomes 1.1 million, even if you don't add anything else to it. So what can we do? What can we add to that in the next 10 years to secure your retirement? And so it's like it becomes this 10-year plan, right? Of like, how much money do I have to make a year? And I question, is it that $100,000 number you talked about? I assume you've thought it in these terms as well, right?
I have, probably not completely all the way through, as far as it comes to years and retirement age. I'm thinking more short term now.
Yeah, I get
my
that.
feeling is that I can work 10 or 15 more years if I have to, because I still feel young and I still feel like I have energy. And, I've been doing this for a long time, so I have some experience. But, yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought it all the way through.
Do you have a backup plan for if you don't find a job of the income that you're used to? Sort of like, well, if I don't have a position paying me 100 by this date, I'm going to take a job that pays me 60, or good or bad? I'm curious if you've gone there yet.
I've gone there in my mind. I mean, I'm committed to finding something, but I've brainstormed a lot about different things that I could do that would pay less just to have some income. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've thought that through a little bit. My backup plan, I guess, is just to find anything,
right?
Just to get working again, and maybe I start lower and advance through a company that will see my experience pretty quickly.
So if let's say you were living at 100% lifestyle, I'm just going to make something up, 6 months prior to the divorce, right? You're living at the highest lifestyle you had been living in a while, to where you are now. What percent reduction do you think you've seen? You're spending around $5,000 a month now. I mean, were you spending $14,000 a month 24 months ago?
Yes, maybe not quite that much, but between 10 and 13 probably. On our good months, we might be at 10, but again, we weren't really budgeting because we didn't need to. It was, I wish I could do it over again, knowing what I know now, but at least we didn't go into any debt. But yeah, we were spending about that much money.
Were you a 2-income household or just you?
We were one.
Okay.
Just me.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I guess where we're at now is like, how have you considered the ramifications of tapping the 560, the 550 retirement money if you can't find employment in the next few months? I mean, have you pulled that alarm yet?
That would be obviously the last resort. I've talked to one of my investors or investment guys, and basically said, well, if you have to do that, at least you're at a very low tax rate.
That's true.
But obviously, for both of us, it's a last resort. I don't want to have to do that. But yes, I've looked at the option.
Yeah.
In case I have to.
What do you do in healthcare right now? I mean, are you on the Affordable Care Act? Are you in the marketplace?
I'm in the marketplace, and that's one of the reasons my bills are $4,000 a month, because that alone is $750 a month.
Yeah, just on you, right?
Just on me. So when I get a job, that's hopefully going to go down quite a bit. Plus, I'll have an income.
I sort of break your situation into a few different time frames, right? There's the big 10-year time frame, which is like, hey, we need to put together a 10-year plan. But then there's all these sort of contingency plans too, right? In some respects, we just have to get you to age 59 and a half, right? When you have access to all this retirement money. And that is a maybe second worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you start tapping into your money now
Right.
by doing something like a Rule 72T, which is to take significant equal periodic payments, which means I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's just a matter of like
Right.
basically annuitizing your money now. Or you could, of course, take the 10% penalty and pay 20% taxes and take a 30% reduction in whatever you take out between 9 and 59.5. So that is worst case scenario. Second worst
Right.
case scenario is that you come up with some semblance of an employment plan between now and 59.5, and then you get to take a breath and reevaluate because now you have access to this money. So that's not awful, and it's a nice marker to try to get, a year and a half out from now or 2 years out from now. But the challenge with that, Mark, is that the second you turn on the faucet of income at 59.5, in some respects, you may have to have that faucet of income last you another 30 years, and your income wouldn't necessarily increase from a retirement perspective until you're 62 and you can tap into Social Security. So that's why it is the second worst case scenario, right?
Right.
And of course, the third is 62, right? That's that third window of, okay, well now I have access to Social Security. I assume you're going to be at max Social Security wages, right? I mean, you will have paid in a ton of money to Social Security. You'll be at $2,800 a month or something like that.
Correct. I think so.
Have you looked at it recently? I guess taking it at 62 is a 25% reduction. So I guess your benefit probably would be somewhere in the $2,200 range if you took it at 62. Have you looked?
I haven't recently. I had the number 2,400 stuck in my mind from looking at it a while ago.
Okay.
But whether it's 2,000 or 2,500, it's still part of the worst case scenario of going to do it at age 62.
And see, this is why, which brings us, I guess, to my bigger point. All of from worst case to second worst case to third worst case, which is 62, all of them don't take into consideration how expensive healthcare is going to be for you.
Correct.
As I think this problem's going to get worse for everyone, myself included, over the next couple of years, which is to say, whatever thoughts of you say, what you might have in your head of, well, I guess I can always fall back on just starting to take withdrawals now. You really can't let yourself do that because it's a dead end because of healthcare, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Your employment issue is certainly an income issue, but I think more than anything, it is a healthcare expense issue, and I think possibly moving healthcare's importance up in the equation, moving it up a bit in terms of importance. Not that it's going to solve your employment problem, but maybe it frames it a little bit differently and maybe has you look at opportunities that you otherwise weren't looking at.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I keep thinking is I've got to be as healthy as I possibly can be at my age so that it becomes a non-issue. The monthly payment's tough enough, but if something happens because I'm not taking care of myself, that could be really devastating. So I do have it kind of as part of my plan to be in really good shape.
How is that? How is your health right now?
It's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
We didn't mention this.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go
Well,
ahead,
I've never
please.
had any major health issues. I just had my physical. Everything's fine. So yeah, I'm in pretty good shape, but I want to continue to really exercise and eat right and do all those things just because I know that can lower my healthcare costs down the road.
Speaking of not very fun questions, obviously your financial obligations to your ex-wife are more or less satisfied at this point, or at least they're known. Do you see any financial obligations to someone that would leave you sandwiched? And when we say that, we mean parents or siblings on your side, or children, which would be the other side of the sandwich. Do you fear and or anticipate any financial obligations to either of those parties?
Well, I think about that. I'm not too concerned. My mom is, she's 80, and she's down to very, very few dollars, so we're looking at all kinds of Medicaid things for
Sure.
her. And my daughters are great students. Here is one nice thing. They're both in high school, and as part of the divorce, their college is paid for.
Oh, nice.
So I don't have to worry about that, and they're good students, and I think they're going to do fine, and we teach them a lot about money. So I don't see it, but it could, you never know.
So, it's really interesting that it was set up that way because in some respects, whereas you got 40%, you also avoided the obligation or pleasure or whatever you want to call it, or privilege of being able to pay for their school. So had you taken 50%, it very well could have cost you that 10% excess to pay for their education anyway, right?
Yeah, that was part of it. I mean, we've got some 529s that we'll go through first, but her parents, since they were born, have said they would take care of their college.
Okay.
So we're going to use our 529s first, and then they have committed to paying for the rest of it, and we made sure that that was part of the divorce decree. But it does help, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting with this situation of like, what problem are we really trying to solve? To me, it becomes you will find employment again, and when you do, can you not try to recreate the lifestyle you lived 24 months ago? Like that's everything. Because if you can do that, then 10 years from now, this all works out. If you get back to that point of you're spending 10 grand a month, I think it's over before it begins.
I would agree with that. And I think, I don't have any question that once I get a job that I will handle things differently. Like I said, I'll feel like I need to budget now. We never felt like we had to budget. I had this feeling that maybe we should have put more in every month, and I thought that for 19 years, and we never did it. But I'm definitely going to be a lot more careful with the money now, and I don't need all the stuff. I'm happy to downsize in this townhouse that I just rented. I'm happy to downsize in a lot of other areas. I don't need all this stuff. So, I think I'm comfortable not going back to that lifestyle.
You know, I've seen situations like yours a lot over the last almost 20 years, and I feel like most people are in the same spot you're in. They're glad they learned the lesson. It's a valuable lesson, but man, they need that second chance to make the lesson pay off. Right. Is that how you feel right now?
I do. I just need somebody to give me a chance, and I feel like now that the house is behind us and I'm moving into the new place, I feel like I have 100% of my time or something like that to really focus on getting the job. Because frankly, that was the other part I guess I didn't answer before. I haven't really been looking for the job in the last couple of months because we've been so busy getting the house ready.
Sure.
And so I feel that you're right. Just somebody to give me a chance. And I feel like I can get that since I've been in the industry so long and I have so many good connections. People have tried to help me. And I think I'll, just keep making phone calls until something works.
Honestly, I mean, as you have to start getting creative of marketing yourself and winning that final, I think you've got to approach a situation and say, look, I'm willing to take less base and more commission. That way I'm not overhead if you're not getting the performance out of me that you want. Because I think not only will it get your foot in the door, will it get your health insurance, but if you're as good as you are, then everybody wins, right? Yeah,
I think that's a really good idea. I hadn't really put that kind of thought into it, but that's a really good point. And that's maybe something I'll have to do when it gets down to it.
Because when you hire a senior person, you're hiring their senior income. By senior, I don't mean, you know what I mean?
I know
senior, not elderly. Senior to a junior. You also are paying their senior health care costs, right? Yep. And so if you're able to take your base down to something that is against the people you're competing against, then they're going to take your experience any day and ignore the economics of the situation because you took that out of the equation.
Right. And I think that's definitely an option. I mean, it kind of kills me because, if they're paying us $150 or $200 grand for the millions that we are selling,
yeah,
to me it's like, who cares? But and they can't ask you how old you are, and they can't ask those questions. They have to be smart about it. But I've just kind of felt it. No. So that might be a really good solution for me.
And then I think too, and again, this gets weird into sort of career advice, but framing the last 18 months of your life in a way that can tell a story that fills in the gaps that your resume clearly now has.
Right.
I mean, because that's tough, right? How do you get your head around that? It's like, well, look, my personal life during that time frame needed to be a priority, and so that's what I did. I'm ready to hit it again. Like, I don't know, right?
That's pretty much the way I've handled it, and frankly, I've gotten down to the finals 2 or 3 times, so it's not like it's been a real big issue until it comes down to the final decision.
Yeah.
But because with a couple of the companies, I had to have 8, 9, 10 interviews before I was down to the final 2. So it didn't seem to be an issue, but I didn't get either. I didn't get any of the jobs.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's a good sign. I mean, it sounds like at least you're getting in the final. So, any
yeah.
anything else that I can assist with, or maybe shed some light on while we're spending time here together this afternoon?
I don't know. You brought up a lot of really good points that either I hadn't thought about or you just framed in a different way. That's been really helpful. I don't know. I guess I'm always looking for different ideas. I think I even put on the notes maybe some, could I open a franchise? Do something different that I really enjoyed. And I know that would be a whole new set of issues, but just any ideas for people my age that are, maybe want to get out of the industry and do something different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a super interesting point here, right? Because you have a big chunk of capital, not enough to retire on, but certainly enough to buy into a franchise, right? By all means.
Yep.
That's an
Sure.
interesting thing. I mean, and if you're as good at sales as it sounds like you are, owning a franchise and customer service, that is the ultimate opportunity to sort of prove your muster there, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. To me, I always talk about, well, what's your drop dead date, or if come June this isn't this way, what do you do? I'd be apt, and you pick the month, I don't really care, but I'd be apt to say, come May or come September, I don't really care. Then I'm buying a franchise, because I think that's a heck of a way to spend the last decade of your career and then not even necessarily sell it. You're still building and establishing hard for 10 years, and then let what you have established become part of your retirement plan. You don't have to sell it in 10 years. You can reap the benefits for the structure you've built. My father-in-law started his first business in his 60s. Like that's
Really?
why I look at my father-in-law as truly one of my heroes in the business world. He worked for the man for almost 40 years. And at one point, he just looked at himself in the mirror and said, I can do this. I've learned enough over the last 40 years. And I think 57 or to early 60s, I think that's the perfect age to say, why don't I take everything I've ever learned, both professionally and personally, about relationships and business skills, and put your money where your mouth is. Like, I think that's a beautiful idea, but it's one of those things that you have to be all in on. There's no half-assing buying a franchise or like buying one that no one's ever heard of. Like, if you do it, you got to do it. But I think it's a wonderful idea.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've thought about it, and I really don't know what I'm doing yet. But you're right, I have an experience. I love customer service, right? I mean,
Right.
I go into places and I see things that are not going well, and think, man, if I ran this business, So I think it's something that I think I'm going to maybe really look into.
I would.
as I'm still looking for a job, because here's the other part of this. My kids haven't seen me work for a couple of years, and they're still young. They're 14 and 17. And they've seen me work, obviously, the years before that. But they're in this age where I want to show them that you can do anything, and you can start at age 57 or 60. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And, by the way, pay the bills and, have success and leave some money for them and all that kind of stuff. So,
I like that you said it. So if we can get weird for a second here, I don't think there's a more valuable thing a parent can do for a teenage child more than show them the value of hard work. I look at my wife and I talk about, when we'll be able to become financially independent and retire. And oftentimes we talk about our early 50s and we're on track, and that's all great. And the one stop short moment to all of that, other than healthcare, is that's going to be a really sort of formidable ages for my kids, where
right.
I don't know if my kids come home from high school and I want to be sitting there watching Phil Donahue reruns, of course. He'll be dead by then. But sorry, Phil Donahue. But I really think about that, and God, it's so true, man. I mean, that's so true. And if you think about too where you are in the stage of your life and what's going on, and socially and personally, like, how wonderful would it be to throw yourself into something, a relationship with your business? Like, that is very appealing to me.
Yep. Yep, and I agree with what you said about the kids. That's why I said if I was going to retire at 55, which we were kind of on track for, I couldn't retire because I didn't want to be sitting around either. I didn't want my kids to see me sitting around. I don't think I could sit around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'll sort of leave you with this last sentiment, and I talk about it a lot, and I believe it is, when things are going well in your career, you're making plenty of money, your investments are doing fine, you have a lot of money, right? You have access to a lot of money, and you almost get tricked into this idea of we're doing it right because we have a lot of money, we have access to a lot of money. And I think what you've learned and you need to focus on going forward is the goal is to not need a lot of money. Like, the goal isn't to have a lot of money. The goal is to not need a lot of money. That means you can have money. Doesn't really matter. It just means that your lifestyle's not at $11,000 or $15,000 a month. Then it's at $6,500 a month in relative terms. And that's why if you go the franchise model or you start your own business, you're going to be humping, man. I mean, you're not pulling in $15,000 a month starting a franchise in the first few years, right? And that's why not needing a lot of money becomes so important.
Exactly. Yep. And it's appealing to me, and I understand the work it's going to take, but I don't mind the work. I've always worked, hard. Worked a lot of hours, done all that stuff in corporate America that you have to do. So I know I could do it. So
there's a good podcast. I have a friend who has a podcast about franchises. It's called Franchise Euphoria.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay, Franchise Euphoria. He's actually been on this show years ago, and I was on his show. Franchise Euphoria. His name's Josh Brown. He's an attorney that just talks about what you should consider when looking at franchises. I would check it out. I mean, I don't know a ton about franchises, but I know he's well respected. Maybe we can learn some stuff here or there.
Great. Thank you.
Sweet,
I'll
man.
Start there.
Anything else?
No, I appreciate it. It was really good talking to you, and I appreciate all the feedback.
Of course. Congrats on the new place. And by God, if you start a franchise, will you please let us know? I mean, you got to let us know. We want to know so bad around here.
Absolutely. I sure will.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck. I don't think you need luck. I think you're on the verge of breaking through here. So keep us posted, and thanks so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you very much, Pete. Appreciate it.
That's it for this week's show. Man, I got excited about the franchise thing. Every time I know, it's so good. So that's it for this week. If you want to be on the show, go to PeteThePlanner.com/podcast. That's it. We'll see you another time. Thanks.
This is where I came from. Planet Lovetron, where we drop love bombs, funk missiles, and live in soul shelters. No helter-skelter. The heat don't swelter because everybody stays cool. Left many moons ago to bring the philosophies of my ancestors to another place, God. Picked the third rock, gave me to my earth family, and told me to create, and so I am. Pen in my hand, microphone on the stand. Over vinyl, I command and demand. Magnificence in an instance, I can make you dance, cry, or love. Fly as a dove, released from Everest. The fresh is fresh, and you can call me E.T. Word to John Tesh. Let me bless this harmonic presentation. It's amazing, so amazing. I'm the reason. Salutations, I bring you Lovetron greetings from a faraway land. I am the soul controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Lovetron can restore your health. I bring you greetings, salutations. How you doing? And is that how y'all say it? The tinkling of the keys is an homage to the little star. I sojourn over poetic descriptions of sound and travel to my other world. Out of this world, spaceship on my arm took me home, fueled by the ink and the megabytes and the hypertext transfer protocol, stronger than the Skynet and the Terminator. I push faders into warp speed, glide with ease, creating a breeze they call a black hole. Event horizon, no rear view concerns. This I adjourn, in beats I burn. This I adjourn, in beats I burn. Salutations, I bring you Lovetron greetings from a faraway land. I am the soul controller. Put the remote down and let me take control. You're now a part of my zone, so enjoy yourself. Lovetron can restore your health. I bring you greetings. Salutations, how you doing? And is that how y'all say it?